Let's talk about the best wartime crew in Infinite Galaxy. Whether you're free to play or pay to win, I've got a few ideas that I think will help you on the way. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming and this video has been sponsored by the makers of Infinite Galaxy. And today I want to break down what I think the very best wartime crew is, and also give you some options if you're free to play as well. And of course, if you want to jump to any portion of this video, there's timestamps in the description. What are you waiting for? Use them. But first, I want to talk about why it is that you're putting points into wartime crew anyways. And one thing you really need to be thinking about very heavily is the balance of points in command, combat, tech, and logistics. And I'll make the argument that for your wartime crew, you want the emphasis to be in combat and tech. Why is that? Obviously, in the combat portion, there are a lot of things that work really well for battling other players and improving the effectiveness of your warships. Some of this not relevant for other players, but I want your crew, generally speaking, to be focused on effectiveness against other players, right over here, against other commanders. There's a lot of stuff that will be in here. And of course, in the tech tree, when you look at the points that are available here as well, there are a few things that really are a deviation from, truly just fighting other players, like, I don't know, the high-speed parts logistics over here giving me a leadership limit, or maybe the spaceport defense sort of stuff, right? But there's enough places you can put points to just be combat effective in space that there is certainly a good reason to go pretty deep into that tech tree. Even the very top end, total warship hit points of 15%. Woo! I mean, that is really, really good. When we get a look at command, things get less good, but still quite relevant. You get some movement speed, which is really good. You get some fleet leadership limit, which is fantastic. You can go for flagship attack and even some amount of ship needs repair limit bonus. This is basically a repair center having more capacity. We don't yet know how KVK Nebula versus Nebula is really going to work yet, so it's to be determined exactly how good some of those points in ship need repair limit are going to be, but they could be very, very strong. And as you get further down here, right, like leadership limit and navigate speed, these are not bad things to have. It's just some of the most premium points over here are spaceport construction and research. This is lower priority for sure than combat and tech, but still relevant, which is why I wanted to call it out. Last but not least is logistics. And I say this is last but not least because for the most part, you actually can always swap to a logistics crew. I've made a video dedicated about that, card up in the top if you'd like to check it out, and then get a ton of logistics points to do kind of whatever you need to do over here. And I'll mention what that is, which is reducing the repair cost and reducing the repair time. There is also a few points in here if you're in a full combat mode that work really well. Navigate speed is really good. The repair center capacity is potentially very good. We don't know how good or bad that is yet, or relevant that is. So the repair speed boost is the reason why you'd want to have a lot of points in logistics. But as I mentioned, you could always swap to those for a moment when you're not fighting, queue up the repairs, and then switch back to your wartime crew and solve that problem like that. This means, by the way, that you're going to be focusing on crew members that are either primarily in tech or preferably are primarily in combat, with where the majority of their points will go. Of course, secondaries in tech and command are preferred, but there really aren't that many crew in the game where that's going to be the reason you decide whether or not you pick a certain crew member. In fact, the thing that would really drive you to pick a crew member in general is how effective are their skills for combat anyways. You can see that I'm using a lot of legendary crew here, and I've obtained them through events and also through purchases. A little bit of picking them up, a little bit of luck, I suppose, recruiting them, and we'll do a little bit of that at the end of the video. But you can see I've chosen all of the combat-related legendaries, and they're in my combat lineup. That's really important. What I want to mention with the tier of the crew member is that, yes, of course, if you have all these legendaries, if you have all the epics, and you have access to everything, and they're ranked up pretty decently, they're going to be really good. But the lower tiers are also very strong as well. I want to show you some of that in just a second, the blue tier, the green tier, but I want to call attention to the fact that the max level of one of these crew members is 40 for a legendary. I believe it's 35 for an epic, and this only goes down. A green is 25, and a blue crew member is going to be 30. So this is important because although we're not nearly at the sort of end state for our crew anyways, at some point down the road, your green and blue crew members are going to be capped. And not only that, but every level you put into one of those crew members gives a certain number of points. A green commander is only giving 1 point per level. A blue is giving 2. Epic is giving 3. Legendary is giving 4. This is really important, though, because not only are you getting more level potential on the higher tier of crew member, but you also get more points per level. So the grand total of like point potential for a legendary crew member is way higher than a green crew member. Because not only is their level lower, but the amount of points you get per level is less. Man, that was a mouthful. So all of that said, the next part of my advice here is going to depend a little bit on how you're focusing your account. I'm making some really big assumptions here about having different types of warships that are going to be doing different types of damage. But if you're focused in on one type of warship, and specifically one tier of that warship, you can really narrow your focus in a way that is very, very combat effective. One of those ways that you need to go and really optimize is the crew members that do damage for a specific type. So for example, here's kinetic damage. Well, that's really good. If you have one crew member who is doing kinetic damage and one fleet only that you're using that does kinetic damage, I just want to point out for a moment that as a captain, you can get way more stats using the exact same crew member than having him in the crew setup that I had over there. You make him a captain and like 33.5% as a captain and 22.9% as a crew member, right? You get a huge bonus. There's a downside though, and the reason that I'm using him as a crew member, not a captain, is I got a bunch of different warships and a bunch of different tiers. I figure I'm going to have to use them all at some point. I've got him in my main crew lineup, so that whatever warship I'm using, I don't have to worry about it. For the most part, when I run out a flagship, with my Artemis, I'm always going to use frigates. And with the Brontes, I'm always going to use cruisers. So I've got captains on those flagships dedicated to just frigates, regardless of what type of damage they're doing. Kinetic, a missile, laser, whatever, I don't care. I don't have to think about it. Again, I think that's slightly less optimal to have those damage-specific crew members sitting in the crew in the spaceport instead of being captains, rather than, you know, just putting the frigate dude, this guy Michael Flamingo, in the crew rather than how I have him as a captain. But again, because I think I'm going to be using mixed tiers at some point, I've got him in that position. Now, if you are going all in on one type of warship, then I do really think it's very strong to use crew members that will enhance that, even if they are blue and green. So for example, if I didn't have as much depth as I do in my crew, I would strongly, strongly recommend that you use a crew member for frigates, for example, like Andrea Bruno. I mean, this dude is absolutely fantastic. You're going to rank him up a lot because he's blue relative to other crew members. He'll advance pretty quickly. I've got mine up to 16.3% frigate attack, which is really fantastic. And I mentioned earlier the damage-specific crew members you could use, for example, Tony Johansson, one of those crew members that gives you 13% more damage for a specific type of damage. It's actually really, really strong, and it's very easy to get one of these crew members a pretty high rank. The only problem is that leveling them up is an irreversible choice that is not amazing, right? Like, unless they give away on a recurring basis to reset your crew members, which I don't know that they will, at some point you'll want to graduate potentially from one of these crew members, or you'll even advance to a different tier of the warship, and you know, you may have put a bunch of points into Carl Norton for the kinetic weapon damage, but now the ship you're using is instead doing laser, and it's like, well, that's a little awkward, right? So I think it's still potentially worth dropping some experience into these crew members, but part of what I would be thinking about is the longevity of that crew member. How long will you be able to continue to use them? And at some point, you get to a sort of, I mean, this is way down the road, At some point, you get to a point where they're capped on level. You can't take them any further. That's kind of an issue. There's not a way to reset that yet. Maybe that's something they'll add. Now, other blue crew members that I think are really solid to use for this, if we just get a quick look over here, obviously the crew members, as I mentioned, for specific warship types are really good, but there are also some blue crew members that give you really great stats. 8.2% warship hit points is what I've got on my Minli now. That's pretty solid. And if we look at her points, she's tech primary, maybe combat secondary is where the majority of her points will go. That's pretty decent. If I look over here, I've got another crew member, more warship hit points. So you could certainly drop in a few of these blue crew members, and I think that would work really well if you're running a more free-to-play setup, which, I mean, a lot of people will be. If you are trying to decide between a blue tier or an epic tier, and they've got about the same amount of stats, then I would say almost certainly you want to go with the higher tier of crew member, so using an epic over a blue, because in the long run, you'll presumably get more of their data cards and rank them up a good bit, and the limit, or the sort of upside, the upside potential of an epic is way higher, as I mentioned, for just the number of levels that you can drop into them. There's a few crew members that I'm currently not using that are on my radar. One is Zhen Wenzhou, who I was using for having the extra fleet leadership limit, but I found that it was not all that amazing. Like, it's a tiny amount of extra leadership. Maybe the stat boost I'm getting from my other crew members is pretty small already as well. But because she didn't also double as a good captain, I decided I didn't want to continue to have experience in her, and I actually reset her recently during that one-time event that we had to go and do that. I mention this because when you're putting experience into one of these epics or a legendary crew member, you just want to think about the longevity of that investment. If they double as a captain that's really, really good and you might use them for that, then that is a really solid investment. I also haven't put experience into Amelia Irving. I expect in the not too distant future, I'll be using the Hades. I'll use her as the captain, or I'll have her in my crew. But that's a crew member that is certainly on my short list for inclusion. There are also two crew members that are in here that might make you question, kind of like, Chisgule, why did you leave these in here? One is Laura. Man, I left her in here and I left her ranked up because I honestly felt like, although I don't think that this flagship attack does all that much, I do really like all the extra command points she's giving. I think that gives me a little bit of versatility here, and I didn't have a great other combat crew member to drop in. Maybe I should have reset her and gone for one of the blues and just gone for all the frigate attack. I'm honestly not sure. But 63.6% flagship attack seemed pretty decent to me, but she also doubles as a pretty decent captain. So in a worst case scenario, if I decided, you know what, I'm just going to use her as a captain, we're looking at 140% flagship attack and 1,200 leadership limit boost. Maybe that will be solid. And the other crew member I've got in here as sort of a tide over, someone who's just holding things over until I figure out who should go in this other spot, is just Bolt. He's legendary. I've got him ranked up for my logistics crew. Here he is. This spot is really kind of flexible because, again, those logistics points, you can get those other ways, and you can flip to that logistics crew when you really need it. One final thing I just want to talk about when it comes to leveling up your crew members is that you want to do them relatively evenly. In other words, you do want to hit the tiered bonus for leveling them up. If you tap the properties button like I just did, every 5 levels, there's some extra points you get, which is really awesome. But when you're deciding which crew member to level up, one thing to think about is just the amount of experience it's going to take and the number of points that that will give you. So if I wanted to level up Aldridge Chase Corey, it's 2,700 experience for 3 points. That's a little under, I guess it's about actually 900 experience per point. And if I wanted to go and level up a legendary crew member, that's like the same level. Let's look at Bruno here. If I want to take him up to level 21, I'm going to get 4 points for that. And that is slightly more than 900 experience per level. It's just something to think about when you're starting to level these crew members up, that if you have one crew member you level up a ton, you're actually leaving a lot of stat points over here on the table unclaimed, rather than if you had done them a little bit more evenly, kind of like I have here with the exception of Laura, who I'm still kind of iffy on what I'm doing with her and on Bolt. I know this was a little bit more technical for a video, but while we're here, why don't we just unwind at the end of the video by recruiting a couple crew? And if you've enjoyed the video so far, throw a like on here and consider subscribing for Infinite Galaxy videos designed to help you get value and smash your enemies. Hey, look at that. There's another Mayor data card. That's kind of nice. I'm happy about that. Let's pop another 10 spot here. What do we get? Full blue. Risako, actually pretty good. I use her in my logistics crew. Very happy to see that. And I'm pretty sure in a day or two, we're about to get an event for opening crew. I just have so much of these crew data cards that, you know, I can rip open a few of these. It's totally fine. There's Dorothy Milton, a crew member I'm currently not using, a staff officer. Let's rip open another 30 data cards. Holy jeez, dude, that was a good one. Andy Perry. Dude, look at all that experience. 1,400 experience. Full crew member over here. Minami, really nice. I'm just hyped about that crew experience. Wow. We'll rip this again. What do we get? Less exciting. Very hyped about the Bolt, but the rest of this, I mean, I guess those 20 experience data cards. Actually, this is not bad at all. Dude, I'm all about that crew experience. Okay, rip it again. What do we get? Full blue. Min Lee. Okay, sure. Whoop. Full blue again. Kobayakawa, science officer. All right, I'll take it. Hey, a little bit of Aldrich Chase Corey. All right, another 10 spot. Keep it going. What do we got here? More Min Lee. Seems reasonable. Little bit of Lincoln. Honestly, these rips were a little less impressive. We pull open a, guaranteed epic, and we get Lincoln. And, okay, 20 more. 20 more, and then we're stopping. There we go. A decent pull. A little bit of Madeline. I'll take that. And also Aldrich Chase Corey and also Helen. One more 10-spot pull. Ooh, we do have a legendary. Full pull on Lincoln is all right. And then full Sashiko. Okay, cool. One Laura and also one Rubia von Hessen. Guaranteed epic is another Dorothy Milton. Wow. Currently not using her, you know? All right, so I smash okay. We just run over to the crew real quick. And who can we upgrade? Looks like we can get an upgrade on Lincoln. This is the asteroid gathering related upgrade, which, you know, I use him as a captain for that sometimes, although I'm really just doing plasma these days, if I'm being honest. And is that really it? No, we have more. Minami gets an upgrade. More health if I was using her, which, like, maybe I should be using her. Andy Perry, hello. Max level for cruiser attack. See, I mean, I might drop in one of those blue crew members if I'm, like, just running around with cruisers or just running around with frigates. I feel like for me, because I'm generally going to be bringing, I think, multiple types, maybe that's not the play. But again, if you found this video helpful, throw a like on here, consider subscribing, and until next time, you have fun smashing your nebula.